There is something in which I would consider to be a recent massive partnership announcement when it comes to Zebec. And the reason why I say that is because Zebec recently announced a partnership with something called Velo. This is pretty massive because Velo, it's a very popular project in the grand scheme of things, relatively speaking. And this, I think, could impact Zebec hypothetically for the long term. Not in terms of the price, in terms of a direct impact, but I think in terms of the pure fundamentals. And I'll talk about that in today's video, even though this is just my personal opinion, perspective, and mindset, and nothing I say is financial advice, and I'm not telling anyone to do anything. So why could this even matter? Well, if we take a look at the details of this partnership, basically, what happened is that Zebec is now powering Velo's branded card, right? And of course, I'm talking about the Velo protocol. Now, people may be thinking, well, why does this matter? Like, Zebec already has a lot of partnerships out there when it comes to their cards. Like, we've already even seen it do stuff with memes. Like, why does it even matter? Well, it's because Velo is not a meme, first of all, and the fundamentals are pretty impressive when it comes to Velo. If I just kind of want to simple things down real quick, Velo is basically a project that's very focused on remittances. Now, people may be thinking, well, what is that? Now, in case someone may be wondering that, a remittance, let me just give an example. Let's just imagine for a second I'm from Japan. And let's say I'm working abroad in Brazil. Now, let's say I'm working in Brazil and I'm sending, some of my hypothetical income back home to Japan. That would be considered a remittance, right? And if we think about it, there are a lot of people out there who work abroad. So of course, Velo is very focused on that, but not only kind of like that in the grand scheme of things. They of course have a more narrowed down focus, at least initially, because initially when it comes to Velo, it was very focused on the Southeast Asian region. People seem to think, oh, Velo is trying to be focused on too many things at once. Well, not really, right? I mean, they have a focus. And again, Velo might not be the most massive project out there, but historically, Velo is more popular than Zebec. That's just the way to take a look at it. I mean, okay, sure, as of right now, Velo isn't doing the best. But if we take a look at it, even though Velo is currently ranked lower than Zebec in terms of market cap, it's still pretty important to note that, again, Velo historically has been a lot more recognizable than something like Zebec, at least in my opinion. Zebec kind of became popular last year. Velo, I mean, sure, it might not be the most popular project out there of all time, but I just still think it's pretty impressive, especially when I consider the use case. So this may not necessarily be like the most interesting or the most exciting partnership of all time, but it's a very meaningful one because it holds a lot of, I guess, importance in terms of the fundamentals and how it could impact Zebec. Because if we think about it, Zebec is a project that's very focused on payrolls, right? It's very focused on the global trade and finance space. And again, if it's actually having a partnership with a project that is very focused on remittances, historically speaking, it would only make sense that they have a partnership just because it fits kind of in line with the narrative of Zebec, right? Velo, very focused on remittances, Zebec, very focused on payrolls and also the global trade and finance space. So it kind of makes sense. It's like, for instance, imagine if KFC had an amazing partnership with Popeyes. It would be so fantastic. I would love it because KFC and Popeyes are my favorite fast food restaurants of all time. Now, even besides all that, though, when I take a look at Velo and Zebec, I think it's pretty impressive what they've done so far. Now, is this going to have an immediate impact when it comes to the price of Zebec? No, not necessarily. And it's only moved around 1% in the past 24 hours, pretty much. So again, this is kind of a misconception that sometimes people think that, oh, if a project launches something so amazing when it comes to this space, that means the price is automatically going to do that or whatever. But I don't agree with that because I think that if the market isn't doing the best when it comes to this space, the project can launch a very impressive partnership and still it wouldn't really move the needle, right? It wouldn't be a needle mover just because the overall sentiment isn't that good to begin with. You know what I mean? It's like, for instance, Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway? Remember when he was like stuck on that place for quite a while? I mean, imagine if in that place there was like a water slide or a roller coaster or whatever. I mean, sure, he'd be pretty happy to kind of go on it a couple times, but eventually I'm assuming he'd be like, eventually, okay, that's not the priority. We need to get out of here, right? I think that'd be kind of the mindset. So it's no different when it comes to this space. When the market overall isn't doing the best, when the sentiment isn't doing the best, it's pretty difficult to be that excited for an amazing partnership or something like that. In some cases, at least overall. So I get why this hasn't moved the hypothetical price that much, of any. But again, that's just kind of how this space works overall. It's pretty difficult to be excited for things if the market overall isn't doing the best, no matter the partnership or whatever. But this doesn't necessarily concern me though, just because this is the type of stuff that could maybe matter later on. I mean, it may not matter too much as of right now, but it could impact Zebec fundamentally. And keep in mind, this adds to a long list of partnerships that Zebec has already had. Because if we take a look at it, Zebec this year announced a partnership with Ripple and Stellar. We gotta let that sink in for a second, right? Ripple and Stellar. Like, what the? That is quite legendary. I mean, I already made videos when it comes to that, but I'm just saying. Zebec is really focused on partnerships when it comes to the global trade and finance space. Ripple and Stellar, again, it's pretty hard to top that. That's already kind of like the peak, right? But when it comes to a partnership with Velo, why not? Velo is nowhere near as massive as Ripple or Stellar, but if it could help Zebec fundamentally one way or another, let's say they work on more collaborations moving forward, or let's say they share ideas, why would that be a bad thing? If anything, it can only help Zebec, in my opinion, right? And with Zebec as of right now being around 3 times away from its peak last year, if it could just go back there, you already know where I'm going. For breakfast, KFC. For lunch, Popeyes. And then for dinner, Sizzler. It's just kind of an analogy, right? That's what I would kind of do if, let's say, Zebec could return back to its peak last year, if it could do that from right now back to there. But that's a big if. But with amazing partnerships like what I've seen so far with Ripple, Stellar, and Velo recently, why would returning back to its peak last year be so difficult? Why would that be difficult? That's just the way I take a look at it. I mean, we'll wait and see, but it was able to do that last year without all these amazing partnerships that I just mentioned before. So actually, fundamentally, I think it's fair for me to deduce, right, that Zebec is not as good fundamentally last year when compared to right now. Especially when it was at its peak last year, it was nowhere near as good as right now. Right now, Zebec actually has an aspect of ISO 20022. Now, it has a partnership with Ripple, Stellar, Velo, and many others. Now, Zebec actually has a super app not only in the desktop version, but also the mobile version too. So if we take a look at it, Zebec, I think, is way better fundamentally right now than its peak last year. And yet, the journey back to its peak last year is around 3 times. So if Zebec was able to reach that last year, what could it do moving forward, especially now that the fundamentals are way better? If it surpassed what it did last year, it wouldn't surprise me. But that's a big if. We don't know as of right now. However, long story short, I'm still waiting. I'm still holding. But when I did see Zebec recently have a partnership with Velo in regards to the cards, I thought it was just pretty amazing. And I thought it was pretty awesome just because this kind of came out of left field. But I guess I can't really be so surprised because Velo, it's focused on remittances, focused on kind of the global trade and finance space to a certain extent. Zebec also focused on the global trade and finance space. And then on top of that, Zebec is focused on payrolls. So I guess the partnership did make sense, but it wasn't something that I expected, right? So I just thought it was pretty cool nonetheless. But of course, I'll be sure to make more videos moving forward when it comes to Zebec, so hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. It's been Lee the Captain, and hopefully I'll see y'all in the next one. I greatly appreciate it.